So do you want to feed your child's imagination? Get them off the screens and start using the creative part of their brains? Check out bblocks.com. That's BEBLOX.com. They're building blocks. They're STEM building toys with 8 fun colors. They have accessories. They make the perfect gift for all occasions. So maybe you don't have little ones, but you're going to a birthday party and you need that perfect gift. This is it. It's bblocks.com, BEBLOX.com. It's great for ages 4 to 12 for both boys and girls. And again, you can get it at bblocks.com, BEBLOX.com, or on Amazon. This is the gift that's going to stimulate their brain. Check out bblocks.com.
Rock God is Stone Cold. The Hellraiser is back.
Here we go. Evolution of the Shield.
John Cena versus the Showstopper.
Hulk Hogan and The Rock in the same ring.
You will never take my place at the head of the table.
Undertaker with a Hell's Gate submission. Oh my God! What?
My God, Michaels just kicked Cena's head off.
The Monday Night Wars have come to WrestleMania.
It'll be The Rock. It'll be Austin one-on-one.
Third and fight to the Undertaker.
Do you believe in miracles?
The streak is over.
Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome back to WWE Retro on the WWE podcast here on this June 16th. But by the time you're listening to this, it will probably be 17th. I am recording late tonight on Friday. Duty called in the real life world with my big boy job and my other part-time job and my fiance, and I'm sure all of you guys know how it is and how busy life can get, but that's not why we're here to talk about my boring little life. We're here to talk about retro and to go back in time and cover something from the past that we deemed, or I guess more specifically, I deemed worthy of committing half an hour of my week to. And you know, with the pay-per-view coming up being Money in the Bank, it's gotten me thinking about pay-per-views under the Triple H regime and how even non-Big Four pay-per-views have become must-watch TV. And I do think most, if not all, of the pay-per-views since Triple H took over as Chief Content Officer have been really good television and really good programming. And I felt under Vince McMahon, especially the last 10 years or so, that B-level pay-per-views were very forgettable. And you could not watch a B-level pay-per-view and nothing major would happen in the way of losing where the story was going or missing a major event. But there was a time when B-level pay-per-views felt very significant before the Triple H era. And that's why I got to thinking, what is the best B-level pay-per-view of all time? And there are some candidates. There really are some good candidates. And I ended up zeroing in on one, and I swear it's not biased because it happened right here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. But I would rival anyone to find a better B-level pay-per-view in the history of WWE than No Way Out 2003 from the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, where I'm born and raised. You know, it's rare to see so many star-studded athletes and wrestlers in the same building on the same show at the same time, but even more so when it is a B-level pay-per-view and not in a major venue in terms of, you know, the wrestling world, whether that be Los Angeles or Madison Square Garden or Philadelphia, Chicago, one of the new Florida stadiums. Montreal, Quebec, Canada featured a B-level pay-per-view that had Stone Cold Steve Austin, a returning Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Triple H, The Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Edge, before he even became a main eventer. This was an absolutely stacked card for a B-level pay-per-view. And it wasn't just the star power of the names that made this event so much must-watch, rather. But it was the actual match card that when you really ran through it was a can't-miss home run for WWE in terms of getting people hyped up for this pay-per-view.
The electrifying
So that is an absolutely stacked card for a B-level pay-per-view. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan in a rematch. Stone Cold Steve Austin returning from an 8-month hiatus. Triple H, and Scott Steiner, although a very underwhelming program to say the least. Brock Lesnar teaming with Benoit and Edge. Just an absolutely star-studded pay-per-view. Now, did it completely deliver from an in-ring perspective? Probably not. I mean, we could dive into Triple H and Scott Steiner farther down the line in this show, and obviously that was one of the more underwhelming programs of the Ruthless Aggression era. But just the star power, the name value, the storytelling going in here, and that's the other thing. I just said Ruthless Aggression, and we were about 7-8 months into Ruthless Aggression here. This is February 2003, and Ruthless Aggression was kind of brought in June 2002, officially, I guess you could say, by Vince McMahon and that promo he cut on Monday Night Raw. And you still had some of the Attitude Era layovers here, and even Golden Era layovers and WCW layovers. Like, this was very much a transition period for WWE, where you were leaving behind the Attitude Era and the WCW Monday Night Wars era and slowly moving into Ruthless Aggression. And you had guys like Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle, even though he was part of the Attitude Era, Brock Lesnar. These were guys that really kind of became cornerstones of the Ruthless Aggression era. And also Triple H, who was one that really kind of transitioned perfectly from the Attitude into Ruthless Aggression, and in a lot of ways was the face and the backbone and the workhorse of the Ruthless Aggression era. So it was a very interesting time, to say the least, for WWE. It was a very interesting period and a delicate period, because you had Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had walked away from the company about 8 months prior. You had The Rock, who hadn't been in the ring since SummerSlam, August of 2002. You're 4 months removed now. And you can kind of feel this transition of The Rock going to Hollywood. And we didn't probably know this at the time, but this would be The Rock's last full-time run with the company in early 2003. You had Hulk Hogan really kind of grasping at the final legs of a full-time run for himself. You know, Austin was returning, but how much more would he have left in the tank here? So there were a lot of questions in this period that I don't think we knew at the time, but in hindsight, very much so, there were some big questions. And I wonder that if we could go back in real time and live a pay-per-view like this and a period like this on the build to WrestleMania 19 in 2003 from Seattle, if we would appreciate it more. And, you know, WrestleMania 19 said, pardon me, I have a lot stuck in my throat tonight, guys. I'm sorry about that. But, you know, WrestleMania 19, one of the more underrated WrestleManias in the history of WWE, if you ask me. So it's, you know, I haven't even started dissecting the match card yet, but this truly was a very interesting time when you look back on it, and a very, like, historic time in a lot of ways. Like, this was the final run of Austin and Rock as in-ring competitors. This was the final run as Hulk Hogan ever as an in-ring competitor. You know, this was kind of the rise of Brock Lesnar 2.0 in a lot of ways. This was, you know, less than a year out from The Undertaker's American Badass gimmick being quite literally buried alive forever. You know, there were a lot of very interesting things going on in this period of time, and that were kind of highlighted at this pay-per-view in Montreal. So the pay-per-view opens with the Cruiserweight division, and it happened on Sunday Night Heat. Rey Mysterio defeating Jamie Noble in 4.5 minutes. Then you get Chris Jericho and Jeff Hardy opening the pay-per-view. And Jeff Hardy, another guy who at this time was kind of being expected to be pushed hard and into that upper mid-card tier, but obviously his personal demons that still somewhat haunt him today derailed that push, and Chris Jericho would get the victory in just under 13 minutes by submission. Then William Regal and Lance Storm, then known as the Un-Americans, would defeat Kane and Rob Van Dam, retaining their World Tag Team Championships. And as Matt and I kind of dissected on our current state of WWE this week, these were the Raw Tag Team Championships at this point in time. So Regal and Storm retained their Tag Team Championships. Then Matt Hardy with Shannon Moore, version 1 Matt Hardy, if you guys remember that, would defeat Billy Kidman to win the Cruiserweight Championship. And if you remember Matt Hardy at this time, it was a big thing for him to get under 205 pounds and make weight to qualify for the Cruiserweight division, because Matt Hardy obviously was heavier than that weight and was really a bigger Cruiserweight going into this. So it was a decent push for Matt Hardy, who had a pretty good run on SmackDown as the version 1 version of himself, if that doesn't sound redundant. And he wins in 9.5 minutes. And the tag team match went 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Then The Undertaker defeats The Big Show with Paul Heyman by technical submission in just over 14 minutes. And this wouldn't be the end of Taker and Big Show, because they would go on to face each other in a handicap match, actually, with the A-Train alongside Big Show at WrestleMania 19. And this was kind of a downtime for The Undertaker. You know, he was coming off of his program against Brock Lesnar in the fall, where he had lost to Brock Lesnar in the Hell in a Cell match. So it was Big Show and The Undertaker, they had some feuds over the years. I remember they had the Punjabi prison match, but it always felt that, like, their chemistry just wasn't quite where it needed to be. And they even had a run as the tag team champions in 1999, I believe it was. I think they were called the Unholy Alliance. But The Undertaker and Big Show, I mean, not that they had bad chemistry, just I thought I was always expecting more, given that they were two of the bigger guys in WWE, and it always just somewhat felt underwhelming. But on another level, it always kind of felt that The Undertaker was kind of on another level than the Big Show, and I don't think that's too bad to say. And then, in a handicap match, because Edge was too injured to make the match in real life, and he would miss about, I think it was 14, 15 months, Brock Lesnar and Chris Benoit would defeat Team Angle, the WWE champion Kurt Angle, Charlie Haas, and Shelton Benjamin in just over 13 minutes. And this was obviously the precursor to the main event of WrestleMania 19, of Brock Lesnar challenging Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship, which Brock Lesnar would come out on top in, and he would win his second ever WWE Championship, and second in inside 6 months, I believe, winning the first one against The Rock at SummerSlam 2002. Then we get Triple H defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Scott Steiner. And obviously, Scott Steiner and Triple H had one of the more underwhelming rivalries in recent memories. Scott Steiner never caught on in any which way in WWE. And what's telling here is that No Way Out, February, he's challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship, main eventing the Raw side of things. And WrestleMania, he's not even on the card. So that kind of tells you where Scott Steiner's career's trajectory went after the conclusion of this match. So Triple H, and this was very, very early on in Evolution, retains the World Heavyweight Championship by hook or crook, obviously. Evolution interfering on the outside allows him to hit Steiner with the championship and then a pedigree. Very anticlimactic finish, and I don't know if you guys caught that over the audio, but the crowd was actually cheering for Triple H. That's how rejected Scott Steiner was as a babyface. And, you know, early on in this era, I would say the Evolution era, Triple H's world champion era, there weren't a lot of foes for him. And, you know, we always talk about arguably one of the worst booking decisions of all time with Booker T at WrestleMania 19. But it just goes to show that aside from Shawn Michaels, all the way until Chris Benoit, they really couldn't get a true babyface to step to Triple H. You know, Booker T was okay, but I still think that was too early on in his career. You know, Scott Steiner, he flopped. You had Kevin Nash for a hot second. Goldberg as well. Goldberg had a really good run, I have to say, around the summer of 2003, shortly after this. But it really felt that it was only by when Chris Benoit got his push that it really felt kind of on par with Triple H. Well, I guess Goldberg too. Goldberg had a pretty solid run. He would actually win the championship of at Unforgiven of this year. But the World Heavyweight Championship gets defended. The WWE Championship not even defended on this show. It's involved in the tag team match as Kurt Angle was the champ at this time. And we still had 2 matches to go. Neither world title was in the main event, which goes to show you what was in store in both main events. And, you know, you don't usually say both main events. I know that's maybe a cliche of WWE, but I think this case, it was warranted. Because obviously going on last was The Rock versus Hulk Hogan in a rematch from WrestleMania 18. But before that, you would have a returning Stone Cold Steve Austin to meet the then general manager of Monday Night Raw, Eric Bischoff. And let me tell you, this is arguably one of the only times where the roof was maybe in jeopardy of coming off the Bell Center.
Let's send a message to Vince McMahon. I know none of you people want to see me wrestle Stone Cold Steve Austin, do you? Yeah, right. Oh, hell yeah, we do. So Stone Cold, I know you can hear me back there. We still have time to do the right thing, and I will forfeit this match to you right now. There he is. A son of a bitch in the WWE is a no-name, and my God, he came the whip of never in his ass. Austin is back. The roof has gone up. The master. This is all fucked up, unbelievable. How does that make you feel, there? It's gonna make me feel pretty good. I'm gonna put some knuckle knock on the head of this. I'll do it better. They're gonna be on his head. They're gonna be on his head. They're gonna be all over him. There ain't no Chief Marley. There ain't no Jericho. There ain't no Storm and Regal. See, we can settle this like men. There's still time. We don't have to do this. We can let bygones be bygones. Steve. Stone Cold.
Let me stop it right there. What do you think Steve Austin was going to do in this moment? I'll give you one guess.
Turn the camera.
JR just going absolutely ballistic in the crowd. Just, this was a squash match of epic proportions. It was there exactly to give the fans what they wanted. Returning Stone Cold Steve Austin decimates arguably the biggest heel in the company in Bischoff, who was the heel Raw GM at the time. 3 Stone Cold Stunners, keeps pulling Bischoff's arm up to do the fake kick out. This is everything it needed to be. A returning Stone Cold Steve Austin just absolutely steamrolling a helpless and defenseless and just a pathetic Eric Bischoff in his karate gear. That was another funny wrinkle they added to it, that he was supposed to be like some kind of black belt. Honestly, the chemistry between Bischoff and Stone Cold Steve Austin was very, very good. It was, obviously it wasn't Bischoff, it wasn't like Austin McMahon, but Bischoff Austin was a good consolation prize. It was a good second, and it was fresh as well. And obviously later that year, when Austin would step away from the ring, they would become co-Raw GMs and all that. But then there was still another main event. There was one more main event, and that was The Rock, a returning Rock, a heel Rock, against Hulk Hogan, who was in the midst of starting a rivalry with Mr. McMahon. And, you know, the crowd was completely behind Hogan, much like they were the year prior at WrestleMania 18 in Toronto. A very similar reaction in Montreal in 2003. And obviously a heel Rock who getting booed this time around was supposed to be getting booed in the eyes of creative. And, you know, in classic Montreal fashion, there was a screwy finish that the fans weren't a fan of.
He was upset with his daughter Stephanie for re-signing Hogan, while McMahon got his revenge here tonight.
So, Montreal Screwjob 2.0, right? But obviously this one was part of the storyline. But with the help of Sylvain Grenier, the SmackDown referee from Montreal, who would eventually form La Resistance, The Rock and Mr. McMahon pull a fast one on Hulk Hogan with the steel chair to the head after the lights go out, a rock bottom, and McMahon, Rock, and Grenier all celebrate as a bloodied Hogan kind of just wallows in his defeat, and then Vince would go back to the ring and kind of taunt Hogan and obviously set up their collision at WrestleMania 19 where Hogan would get his revenge. But it was kind of weird to see The Rock, after a babyface for 3.5 years or so, align himself back with Vince McMahon, where it all kind of started for The Rock as a main eventer. So it was like The Rock's first main event level run was aligning himself with Vince McMahon, the corporation, and then his last full-time run was himself aligning once again with Vince McMahon. So kind of poetic in a lot of ways too. But obviously a very heelish way to end the show after a very babyface-esque precursor with Stone Cold Steve Austin. But all in all, fantastic pay-per-view. I'd really suggest you guys go watch the it in its entirety. Easy enough for me to say. As No Way Out 2003, for me, is arguably the best B-level pay-per-view of all time. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. As always, you can get me on Twitter at ADamarco25. You can get Matt on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can email him each and every week for the WWE Podcast mailbag. That's it for me this week. I will be talking to you on Monday with Matt, and of course, I will be talking to you this time next week.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.